Okay, so this is a second XPG video, well, basically in 2 days, but I really wanted to cover this immediately right after the Hurricane Mag because this case is a bit different, I would say. Now, this right here is the XPG VALOR AIR NANO, and the cool thing about this case and what I'm really digging is you have 5 dust filters on each panel, so bottom, both sides, top, that's 4, and front as well. And the cool thing is, it's completely toolless, except for mounting the motherboard and everything else regarding that. So, this is how you open it. And, as you can see, it's kind of nicely perforated with a dust filter here. And the same thing goes on all sides, top side, bottom. Bottom is, well, it's not magnetic, but regardless of that. So what you can do inside this case and what it gives you. Now, let's start from the beginning. First, you can go up with GPUs up to 370, and you have an anti-sag GPU bracket that is possible to adjust the height, and even 3 slides here that give you an option if the GPU is fairly long. Now, the GPU, what you can do is, if you go with an ATX power supply, of course, you have to take into consideration that you'll have loads of cables running out from the power supply, even though you could tuck them quite nicely. But regardless of that, you get the bracket for the SFX power supply, and this is really good because you get an option basically just to choose the power supply that you already have and give you an option to, if you want to mount a SFX power supply, you can. You don't have to go and buy additional brackets or anything similar to that, or you can just simply go with an ATX. You do have to remove the bracket that is just placed on top where the ATX screws are, and that's it. Now, what this case brings us to the table, you have possibility to mount 6 fans. What they stated is you can place 3 on top, 1 at the rear and 2 at the bottom. But let's go further. So you have possibility for a 360 radiator. If you don't want to go with a 360 radiator or liquid cooling, you can go with air cooling up to 170 of height for the CPU tower cooler. This gives you an option basically to choose whatever you wish and whatever you want to do. Now, since this case has a small footprint, it is a GeForce SFF ready for the GPUs. In this scenario, you could go with thinner cards, and the cool thing, you can then mount bottom fans for intake. Now, I'm running an mATX motherboard again, and the same thing as in the past builds, it's a problem if your PCI bracket is lower, so it doesn't occupy the first expansion slots. Talking about expansion slot, we have 5 of them at the back, which you don't have covers, you have to remove them entirely from this part. When I mentioned radiator, you have possibility for a 360 or 240 at the top. You have possibility for 6 fans, potentially 7, but you'll have to test that out. The cable management at the back, we have 35.6 millimeters of space clearance for cable management. As you can see from a close-up, you have really loads of space and you can really do whatever you want. Power supply up to 170 millimeters, which is quite cool, and this is not counting the cables, take that into consideration. Now for the I/O ports, we have one USB 3.2 generation 2 type C, we have 2 USB 3.2 generation 2 type A, we have power on button, reset button, and of course we have a 4-pole 3.5 millimeter jack. On top, you can go with 3 120 or 2 140 fans, 1 120 at the back. Also, it can fit 120 radiator at the rear. Then at the bottom, as already stated, I don't want to repeat myself with that. But for the storage, 2 SSD bays, one is located here and one is on the opposite side at the back where the cables are, and one hard drive can be mounted on front. There's no tempered glass. There is literally no tempered glass. Everything is meshed out. So let me just show you the top. This is the top. The same design goes through the whole chassis. Here we do have a magnetic dust filter in terms of comparing the top part and the side panel, because this is not a magnetic dust filter, I think. Let's see. Yeah, it is. Sorry, my bad. But regardless, we're having a smaller case, cool design, no tempered glass, yet if you have RGB lights like I do in this scenario, you can see a bit of a glimpses of your PC inside when it's when it lights up. The one thing that is a problem inside this case is the cable for the power supply. It's a bit too short for their core reactor 2, because the plug for the core reactor 2 is on the far right side, and of course you're not going to flip the fan to take intake from the interior part, because that will just bring hot air to the power supply. So the intake for the power supply goes from the front and then upwards. In that scenario, the plug is on the far right side here near the SSD. And that creates a problem because you have to stretch the cable and twist it around. And then what happens is you have to tie up the cable so it doesn't touch the first fan of the AAO. I think that's the only issue that I noticed. But when we're talking about the AAO placement, that doesn't create a problem because you're going to flip the tubes on the other side. But you have a fan here at the back, and since I'm running Hurricane Mag here, they don't have the issue with the connection for the tubes. That's great. But the tubes are slightly bent here for the with the rear fan, and that's another thing that you need to, I don't know, somehow manage. But I did, and it's good to go. It cools, it works, there's no problem whatsoever. But just to give you an idea so you don't get surprised, the case in general looks outstanding, something completely different. We don't have tempered glass. I wouldn't even place a tempered glass on this case because this gives you a completely different story and an approach, and full mesh sides. Even with this, this pattern on the all sides of the chassis just brings different visuals. It comes in black and white. You have one 120 addressable RGB fan here mounted at the rear, which is pre-installed when you buy the case. And basically, I think it's time to go with benchmarks. So going with AD64 XPG VALOR AIR NANO paired up with the Levante X360 Hurricane Mag. CPU is 7900 X3D, goes up to 87 degrees with the clock speed 4825 MHz. GPU goes up to maximum 52 degrees, which is quite solid since we don't have any additional intake for the GPU, and that's good. In gaming, it goes up to 47, which is still okay. I mean, it has a massive passive shroud, so that's good. When we go with Cinebench R23, we have 10 runs, and average thermals with these 10 runs is 82.4 for the CPU. We're having 4903 megahertz clock speed on 10 average runs, and 26,288 Cinebench score. In general, I think that's quite solid when you take into consideration the AAO scored almost similar. I think these Hurricane Mags, comparing when you take into consideration that they have the ability to switch rotation, so they had to sacrifice airflow and air pressure, and if you go with the original fans, you might get a bit better in terms of performance. So in this scenario, the case is great. It's well ventilated, no doubt about that. I would definitely suggest going with additional fans here at the bottom, which will give you more intake. If the GPU doesn't collect everything, it will go on the side and give fresh air to the radiator on top. In that scenario, they packed a lot of stuff in this case. XPG VALOR AIR NANO is something completely different what they shown us so far, right? And we saw it at Computex this year, and which is just great. So ATX or SFX power supply on the front, fan needs to be rotated on the front. 360 radiator on top, or air cooler 170, which fits without a doubt. GPUs up to 370, 6 fans, 1 hard drive, 2 SSDs. I mean, 35.6 millimeters of cable management. You can reroute it quite nicely, and I think the case in general looks quite nice. The performance can be boosted if you add more fans, if you add original fans for the AAO and similar stuff like that. And that basically wraps it up. Thumbs up, quite solid case in general, but I would definitely take a look at the power supply in terms of the plug, and just so you don't have the problems with the power cable. That's all. That's everything, guys, for today. Thanks for watching. XPG VALOR AIR NANO, the link is in the description so you can check out the price and everything else. If I might have missed something regarding the specifications, and basically that will be all. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, click the notification bell, and I'll see you tomorrow in another one, of course. Thanks. Bye bye.